The envoy from Earth drifted silently through the blackness of space, a small ship carrying the hopes of billions of humans. 4 years, scientists had prepared this mission, choosing the best crew, equipping the ship with advanced technology, and sending messages of peace to the stars. Humanity wanted to show the galaxy that they were ready to join the interstellar community. They wanted to prove that despite being young, fragile, and small compared to other civilizations, humans could contribute and learn. The crew was hopeful, smiling at each other as they passed planets and distant suns, unaware that eyes far beyond their reach were already watching, waiting, and judging. Suddenly, without warning, an immense ship appeared from nowhere, larger than any human imagination could hold. Its surface shimmered like molten metal, glowing with deadly energy, and it blocked the Envoy's path as easily as a finger could stop a paper airplane. The humans on board froze in horror, their training failing to prepare them for something so vast and alien. A voice, not spoken but somehow felt, echoed in their minds, "You are not welcome." Then, flames erupted. The Envoy's shields tried to hold, but they were no match for the alien firepower. Within minutes, the small ship was consumed, turning into a brilliant streak of light against the dark void. On Earth, billions of eyes were glued to screens, watching their champions burn. Families held each other tight, tears streaming down their faces, yet among the fear and sorrow, a different feeling began to stir: rage. No human wanted to believe it at first. The Council of Earth had warned them, had told them that contact with more advanced civilizations could be dangerous, but nothing had prepared them for the sight of their people incinerated in the cold emptiness of space. Scientists, generals, leaders, and ordinary citizens stared at the broadcast, and slowly, the realization settled in: the galaxy had underestimated them. The aliens had expected fear, submission, or despair. They had expected humans to break. But instead, humanity felt a fire of their own ignite within. Across continents, people whispered the same words, feeling a unity they had never experienced before: "We will not be afraid. We will not bow." The alien empire, proud and arrogant, believed they had sent a message: humans were weak, expendable, and unworthy of joining the cosmic community. They had no idea that in destroying the envoy, they had sown the seeds of something far greater. In living rooms, streets, and offices, humans began to understand a truth that had been hidden in their daily lives: their survival depended on action, on strength, and on refusing to let the galaxy dictate their destiny. Children, too young to understand war, felt the anger of their parents and older siblings, feeling a spark of something bigger than themselves. In classrooms, teachers paused, looking at the news feed, and students whispered questions about space, life, and the courage of humanity. The burning envoy became a symbol, a reminder that the galaxy could be cruel and ruthless, but that cruelty could also awaken an unyielding will. Within the halls of government, the World Assembly convened an emergency session. Leaders who had argued for diplomacy now argued for action. Military generals outlined strategies, scientists detailed experimental weapons, and strategists mapped out alliances that could never have existed before. Every discussion, every plan, carried the weight of that one burning ship. Outside, ordinary citizens organized vigils, protests, and rallies, not to mourn, but to prepare. Humanity was no longer naive. Humanity had been insulted, threatened, and challenged, and in that challenge, a new determination arose. Across news channels, social media, and private conversations, the message spread: the galaxy had awakened a dangerous force, one it had not predicted. Humans were not just survivors, they were fighters. They were clever, adaptable, and unstoppable when united. For the first time in history, Earth felt truly one, connected by a shared shock, grief, and determination. People looked at the stars not with fear, but with a burning desire to reach them again, to show the universe that they belonged. As night fell across Earth, the glow of screens lit faces that reflected more than sorrow, they reflected defiance. Children who had never looked beyond their own world now dreamed of distant planets. Soldiers who had trained for peace now prepared for war. Scientists who had studied the stars for knowledge now studied them for vengeance. And somewhere in the void, the alien empire that had burned the envoy watched, confident in their victory, unaware that they had only unleashed the first spark of humanity's wrath. The world had changed in an instant, and no one would forget the sight of that tiny ship turning into fire. It was more than destruction, it was the beginning of a story that the galaxy would soon learn. Humans were not to be taken lightly, and when pushed, they could rise from ashes to challenge the stars themselves. By the time the night ended, a silent promise had formed in every mind on Earth. They thought this fire would scare us. They had no idea what it had ignited. The destruction of the Envoy had shaken the entire planet, but instead of fear, it sparked a fire of determination that no one could ignore. Leaders from every nation gathered in the World Assembly, their faces grim and eyes filled with the weight of responsibility. For the first time, arguments for caution and diplomacy were silenced by the collective demand for action. Generals spoke of the enemy's strength, yet even they admitted that Earth's courage could be a weapon no technology could match. Scientists revealed projects long kept secret from the public. Warships capable of speeds beyond imagination, weapons that could strike from orbit, and artificial intelligences designed to learn and adapt faster than any alien mind could predict. Citizens across the globe watched in disbelief as humanity transformed before their eyes. Ordinary people who had never handled a weapon now volunteered to serve, inspired by the unity of purpose that stretched across oceans, mountains, and deserts. Streets filled with signs and banners that read, "We will not bow," and, "For every human lost," as if the planet itself was rising as one. Even those who had opposed military action found themselves swept up in the movement, understanding that the attack on the Envoy was not just an act of war, it was an insult to the existence of every human being. Across cities, children learned the stories of the Envoy crew, their bravery in the face of certain death becoming lessons in courage, hope, and defiance. Families spoke in hushed tones about the new mission ahead, about a future where humans would take their place among the stars, not as guests but as equals. In laboratories, engineers and programmers worked day and night, pushing machines to their limits, creating weapons that combined speed, intelligence, and precision. Space agencies coordinated secretly with militaries, converting research stations into command centers, and turning launch pads into hubs of preparation. Even the world's economy began to shift, focusing resources on the development of technologies that could ensure humanity's survival and victory. Meanwhile, the alien empire that had destroyed the Envoy watched from afar, confident that their actions had broken Earth's spirit. They believed the humans would cower, that the planet would retreat behind walls of fear, and that the stars would remain theirs by right. They did not understand that what they had seen, the fire of destruction, was not a sign of weakness but a challenge that humanity had accepted. Ordinary citizens began to train, forming militias and volunteer fleets, learning tactics and strategies that were once reserved for elite forces. Universities added courses on alien technology and interstellar warfare, preparing a new generation to think beyond the boundaries of Earth. Diplomats, once advocates of peace, now found themselves forging alliances with other species, quietly contacting alien civilizations who feared the dominant empire and who saw in humans a chance for balance in the galaxy. Every corner of Earth became a part of the preparation, every human a contributor to the coming struggle. And yet, amidst the plans for war, there was a deeper realization taking root. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Across history, humans had survived disasters, wars, plagues, and famine, always adapting, always learning, always rising from the edge of destruction. Now, faced with an enemy that thought them weak and expendable, humans were about to prove that their greatest weapon was not in machines or weapons, but in their will to survive, to protect, and to fight back. The debates in the World Assembly were heated, but even the harshest critics could not argue against the growing evidence. Humans were united like never before. Nations that had once fought among themselves now shared secrets, resources, and strategies. Scientists collaborated with engineers, generals with diplomats, and ordinary people with volunteers across the globe. For the first time, Earth acted as a single organism, a planet-wide force capable of responding to any threat. As preparations continued, broadcasts from every nation carried messages of hope, defiance, and determination. The voice of humanity, once soft and uncertain, now rang across continents with strength and clarity. We will not kneel. We will not forget. We will rise. The alien empire, arrogant and blind, still believed that Earth could be intimidated, that humans could be controlled through fear. But they underestimated the lessons humanity had learned through suffering, through struggle, and through unity. They underestimated the resilience that had allowed humans to endure countless challenges and emerge stronger every time. Across the planet, people looked at the stars and imagined the coming battles. Children sketched spaceships on paper, dreaming of joining the fight. Soldiers sharpened their skills and minds, preparing for a war that would span worlds. Scientists calculated trajectories, tested weapons, and built fleets designed to face enemies who had always believed themselves superior. And in the quiet moments when fear tried to creep in, humanity remembered the Envoy, the flames that had lit up the darkness of space, and the courage of those who had sacrificed everything. That memory became their fuel, their guiding light, their reason to act. Humanity had a choice: retreat into fear and submission, or rise with fire in their hearts and defiance in their souls. Every human chose the latter. The world, once fractured by borders, politics and differences, now stood united with one purpose. The attack on the Envoy had not destroyed them, it had awakened something far greater, a species ready to take its place among the stars, not as victims, but as warriors. The preparations continued, the alliances formed, the fleets built, and the minds sharpened. Humanity had decided, in no uncertain terms, that the galaxy would never underestimate them again. And as the night fell across Earth, the final thought echoed in every heart: they thought burning our Envoy would break us. Instead, it has made us unstoppable. After months of preparation, humanity's first strike against the alien empire was ready. Hidden fleets, long kept secret from the public, now moved silently through space, equipped with experimental weapons, AI-assisted targeting systems, and engines capable of speeds no alien could anticipate. Earth's commanders, scientists, and strategists coordinated in real time, their planning flawless, their determination absolute. Every ship, from massive war cruisers to small fighter drones, had a purpose, a mission, and a target. The first outpost of the alien empire lay in a remote star system, thought to be untouchable by any human technology. As the human fleet approached, the alien sensors detected movement but underestimated the numbers and capabilities of the approaching force. They laughed at the humans, confident that such a primitive species could never reach their stronghold. Then the attack began. Explosions ripped through the alien defenses, faster and more precise than anything they had seen. Railguns fired from orbit, striking with pinpoint accuracy, while AI-controlled drones outmaneuvered the alien ships in ways impossible for any biological pilot. The outpost, once a symbol of the Empire's invincibility, burned and collapsed within minutes. Back on Earth, people watched in awe and disbelief as live feeds broadcast the destruction. The same billions who had once mourned the burning of the Envoy now cheered with unrestrained joy. Humanity had struck first and struck true. Survivors among the alien forces whispered in fear, realizing too late that the species they had dismissed as weak was capable of planning, adapting, and striking with precision. Human ships moved with deadly coordination, surrounding remaining alien vessels, cutting off escape routes, and forcing surrenders. The aliens tried to retaliate, firing vast beams of energy and releasing swarms of automated fighters, but the humans had anticipated every move. AI systems adapted instantly, predicting alien tactics and countering them with unmatched efficiency. Every strike, every maneuver, carried the weight of Earth's anger and the memory of the Envoy's destruction. On Mars, the fleet command watched the operation unfold, celebrating small victories while preparing for the inevitable counterattacks. Scientists adjusted strategies on the fly, sending real-time updates to ships in combat, improving targeting systems, and guiding pilots through enemy defenses. The alien empire, used to centuries of dominance, could not comprehend the speed and ingenuity of human tactics. Every time they believed they had trapped a human ship, it slipped away, striking elsewhere, leaving destruction in its wake. Across the galaxy, other civilizations began to notice the rise of humanity. Some watched in secret, curious or fearful, while others began to question their alliances with the Empire. Whispers spread: the humans are not what we thought. They fight with a fire that cannot be stopped. Human pilots, trained for months in simulations, now faced real combat and excelled. They moved with confidence, courage, and a willingness to risk everything for their species. Communications between ships were minimal, but the coordination was perfect. It was as if the fleet operated as one mind, one heart, one unstoppable force. The first strike ended with complete success. The alien outpost was destroyed, their ships either captured, destroyed, or forced to retreat. Humanity had delivered a message. They were no longer victims, they were hunters, and the galaxy would have to take notice. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted, but there was no arrogance, only determination. Humans understood that this was only the beginning. The empire that had burned the Envoy would not forgive, would not forget, and would soon retaliate. Yet, the taste of victory had strengthened humanity's resolve. Every person on the planet felt connected to the strike, proud that their ingenuity, courage, and unity had turned the tide. Children sketched spaceships and battles, dreaming of joining the fight. Soldiers prepared for the next mission, engineers designed new weapons, and strategists calculated moves against an enemy who thought they were untouchable. Across social media and news broadcasts, the human population shared pride, determination, and the knowledge that their species had crossed a threshold. The first strike had shown that humanity could not only survive against a superior enemy but could also defeat them, inspire awe, and change the balance of power. The alien empire, stunned by their unexpected defeat, scrambled reinforcements, but panic had begun to spread. Their arrogance had blinded them, and now they faced an enemy that was unpredictable, adaptable, and united by a cause greater than any single empire. Humans on distant worlds celebrated quietly, knowing that every success would bring them closer to their ultimate goal, ensuring that no alien would ever underestimate Earth again. The destruction of the first outpost became a legend within hours. Every corner of humanity discussed the bravery, the planning, and the sacrifice of those involved. It was proof that humans, underestimated for centuries, were now capable of shaping their own destiny among the stars. And somewhere in the void, the empire that had tried to erase humanity with fire realized their mistake. They had awakened a species that could think, adapt, and strike with unmatched precision. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command without consequence. Humanity had declared war, not with threats, but with action, and the universe had taken notice. The first strike was over, but the war had just begun, and the stars themselves seemed to pulse with the energy of a species that would not be defeated. Humanity, once seen as weak, had become a force that no one could ignore. And as the fires of the destroyed outpost faded into the darkness of space, a single truth became clear. Earth had risen, and nothing would ever be the same. The news of humanity's first strike against the alien empire spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Other civilizations, some old and powerful, some young and cautious, had always watched humans from afar with curiosity or mild amusement, believing that Earth's species was too small, too weak, too disorganized to matter in interstellar affairs. But now, the broadcast of the destroyed alien outpost, seen in real time across many systems, shattered every assumption. Leaders of distant star nations gathered urgently in their council halls, fear and disbelief spreading across their faces. Messengers, satellites, and communications relays carried images of human warships moving with unmatched precision, of AI-controlled drones outmaneuvering their oldest and most experienced fleets, and of humans willing to risk everything in battle. Even the most confident civilizations began whispering warnings: do not underestimate them. They are not like any species we know. The alien empire that had burned the Envoy now faced not just the consequences of its arrogance, but the realization that other species were watching, questioning, and fearing its power. Some smaller civilizations, long oppressed by the Empire, secretly began sending scouts to Earth's position, hoping to understand the humans and perhaps form alliances. In hidden chambers and command centers, alien leaders debated what to do. Some called for immediate retaliation, believing that swift punishment could contain the humans before they grew stronger. Others, older and wiser, argued that Earth species had already proven something extraordinary: adaptability, intelligence, courage, and unity that no one had anticipated. Panic began to spread within the Empire's ranks. Generals and admirals, trained for centuries to expect the unexpected, were shocked at the precision and speed of human attacks. Their simulations had never predicted humans could coordinate so flawlessly, act so decisively, and strike with such confidence. Even the soldiers closest to the front lines began to question their mission. Doubts grew, whispered among themselves: Are we facing a species that cannot be defeated? Back on Earth, humans continued to prepare, unaware of the fear they had already caused. Every day brought new weapons, new strategies, and new alliances. The planet itself seemed to pulse with a shared determination. Humans did not seek to terrorize others, but their actions could not be ignored. The alien empire had made the mistake of thinking fear alone could control Earth, and now that same fear was spreading across civilizations who had long considered themselves untouchable. Scientists on Earth analyzed intercepted communications, learning more about alien technology than ever before. Strategists predicted possible reinforcements, calculated probabilities of counterattacks, and prepared contingency plans. Every citizen, from students to factory workers, understood in some way that humanity's actions were shaping the balance of power in the galaxy. The fear that began in the alien empire now extended outward. Neighboring star systems watched closely, some shielding themselves, some accelerating their own military programs, and some quietly sending messages of friendship or alliance to Earth. News feeds broadcast messages of humanity's first strike and its consequences, showing how one small planet could challenge a vast empire. The galaxy realized that humans were not just fighters, they were symbols of unpredictability and resilience. The very fact that humans were young and inexperienced in interstellar politics only made them more dangerous, for they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. The alien empire scrambled, calling for reinforcements, but their fleets arrived too late to prevent the growing network of intelligence and observation that humanity had already established. Every victory, every maneuver, and every act of defiance inspired whispers across distant worlds. Diplomats from other civilizations reached out secretly, seeking guidance, questioning loyalties, and considering whether to align with humanity rather than their long-standing oppressors. Fear, once a tool of the Empire, had now become their enemy. Even within the Council of the Empire, once united leaders began to argue, blame, and suspect one another, unable to find a solution to the unpredictable threat that humanity had become. And yet, on Earth, the people remained calm, focused, and resolute. They knew that fear in the galaxy would buy them time, opportunities, and strategic advantage. Human leaders broadcast messages of warning and caution. Humanity did not seek needless conflict, but it would not bow, it would not negotiate from weakness, and it would defend its people against any threat. Across oceans and continents, ordinary citizens felt the significance of what had begun. This was no longer a fight for survival, it was a demonstration of humanity's place in the universe, a warning that arrogance would be met with unity and courage. Children imagined the stories they would tell in the future about this time when humans, underestimated and challenged, proved that spirit and determination could defy even the oldest powers in the galaxy. Scholars wrote analyses, engineers developed faster communication methods, and military officers trained recruits in the understanding that the galaxy had changed. Every action on Earth, from launching satellites to building new fleets, carried with it the knowledge that humans were no longer just a planet, they were a force to be reckoned with. The alien empire, once confident in its dominance, now faced uncertainty. Its soldiers feared encounters with human fleets, its leaders worried about loyalty and intelligence leaks, and its allies began to question whether siding with the Empire was wise. Across the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Humanity had changed the rules of engagement, and nothing would ever be the same. The fear that spread among civilizations was not just fear of war, but fear of the unknown. What humans would do next, how far they would go, and how quickly they could adapt were mysteries that no one could predict. The galaxy watched and waited, and humanity continued to prepare. With every day, their fleets grew stronger, their technologies sharper, and their will unbreakable. The fire that had begun with the burning of the Envoy now spread across worlds, not as destruction, but as the unmistakable proof that humans, underestimated for centuries, were rising to claim their place among the stars. And in the darkness of space, among the trembling hearts of alien leaders, one thought became clear. Earth had awakened a force that could not be contained, and the galaxy would never forget the fury, courage, and determination of humanity. After months of careful planning, humanity was ready to make its stance clear to the galaxy. The fleets, warships, and experimental AI units had been prepared, trained, and tested, and now every human, from the generals in orbit to the citizens on Earth, knew that the time for words alone had passed. Humanity broadcasted a single message across every communication channel, every satellite, and every listening post in the galaxy. You tried to erase us with fire. Now we come with war. And we will not stop. The message was simple, direct, and impossible to ignore. Across countless star systems, beings of all shapes, sizes, and intelligence stopped to listen. Some felt fear, some curiosity, some admiration, but no one could dismiss it. The alien empire that had burned the Envoy was shaken to its core. For centuries, it had ruled with arrogance, assuming that its power and age made it untouchable. Now, it faced a species it had underestimated, a species willing to challenge its authority and strike back with intelligence, precision, and determination. Earth itself became a symbol, a beacon of defiance and unity. Citizens watched the broadcast on screens large and small, across continents and oceans, their faces lit with pride and determination. Soldiers prepared for upcoming battles, engineers double-checked systems, and scientists refined strategies, all under the knowledge that humanity had declared itself a force to be reckoned with. Volunteers, millions of them, signed up for service, eager to contribute to the defense and expansion of humanity's presence in space. Even those who had never handled a weapon felt the weight of responsibility and the pride of belonging to a species that had risen above its limitations. Across other civilizations, reactions were mixed. Some saw humanity as reckless, dangerous, and unpredictable. Others, oppressed or weakened by the Empire, saw hope, a new power that could balance the scales and challenge the tyrants that had dominated the galaxy for centuries. Secret alliances began to form, hidden messages were sent, and scouts discreetly observed human activities. Humanity's declaration was not just words, it was a challenge, a warning, and a call to unity for those who sought freedom. Meanwhile, the alien empire scrambled to respond. Generals barked orders, fleets were mobilized, and reinforcements rushed to defend key systems. But every calculation, every simulation, revealed one uncomfortable truth. Humans were not only prepared, they were unpredictable. Their strategies evolved faster than the Empire could anticipate, and their courage inspired loyalty among allies and fear among enemies. Humans on Earth and in orbit worked tirelessly, understanding that preparation and precision could turn fear into advantage. Scientists adjusted targeting algorithms, engineers improved propulsion systems, and soldiers trained to work seamlessly with AI units, creating a combination of intelligence and instinct that was unmatched. The Declaration had unified humanity in a way that no other event in history had. Every person, from leaders to children, understood that the species' survival, pride, and honor were now at stake. Stories of the Envoy and its destruction became lessons in courage and resilience, fueling determination for the battles to come. The human fleet moved like a single entity, communication precise, maneuvers swift, and every ship carrying the message of defiance in its actions. Across the galaxy, the message spread beyond words. The destruction of enemy outposts, the capture of supply lines, and the swift, calculated strikes proved that humanity did not just talk. They acted. Those who had doubted Earth's place in the galaxy now had no choice but to reconsider. The Declaration was a turning point, signaling that humans would not be intimidated, that they would not negotiate from weakness, and that they would defend themselves and their people against any threat, no matter how powerful. Ordinary citizens, watching from home or on duty, felt a shared sense of purpose. Streets and public spaces filled with celebrations, but beneath the joy lay determination, focus, and readiness. Children imagined themselves as pilots or scientists, contributing to a species that was no longer passive but active, no longer ignored but feared and respected. Across space, spies, scouts, and observers from other civilizations began reporting what they saw. Humans adapting, learning, coordinating, and striking with speed and precision. The fear that had begun in the alien empire now spread further, across allies, rivals, and neutral parties. Even those who had never fought a human now considered them a serious threat. The Declaration, simple as it seemed, carried with it an unspoken truth: humanity would no longer be underestimated. The fire that began with the burning of the Envoy had become a flame of resistance, a signal that humans were willing to fight for their place, their honor, and their future among the stars. Every attack, every countermeasure, and every strategic move became part of a larger story, proving that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. And as the stars watched, the alien empire realized that arrogance alone could no longer protect them. Humanity's message was clear: they would rise, they would fight, and they would not stop until their enemies understood that Earth was no longer a planet to ignore. The galaxy had entered a new era, one defined by the courage, intelligence, and unity of a species that refused to bow. Earth, once underestimated and dismissed, now stood as a beacon of determination, a reminder that even the smallest species could challenge the strongest powers when united in purpose. Humanity had spoken, and the universe listened, knowing that the age of innocence, submission, and underestimation was over. From this moment onward, humans would fight not just for survival, but for respect, recognition, and their rightful place among the stars, leaving no doubt that the species of Earth was unstoppable. The war that humanity had declared now raged across countless star systems, and for the first time, the galaxy saw a species that could not be ignored. The alien empire, once supremely confident in its strength and age, faced a relentless foe that adapted faster than they could predict. Human fleets moved with coordination and intelligence that was unmatched, striking with speed, precision, and courage. Every battle, every engagement, revealed a new side of humanity. Strategists learned from mistakes in real time, AI systems adjusted instantly to enemy tactics, and soldiers on the front lines demonstrated bravery that inspired allies and terrified enemies. The Empire unleashed its largest fleets, assuming their experience and numbers would crush the humans quickly. They sent massive warships, energy beams, and swarms of fighters, expecting resistance but not the full force of Earth's preparation. Human ships responded with clever maneuvers, ambushes, and feints, using knowledge gained from months of observation and simulations. AI drones coordinated perfectly with human pilots, predicting enemy actions before they occurred and striking with deadly precision. One fleet after another fell into carefully laid traps, alien ships destroyed or captured, their tactics turned against them. The Empire realized too late that humans were not following predictable patterns. They were learning, adapting, and evolving mid-battle, and their resilience seemed limitless. Civilians across Earth followed reports of victories and analyzed every broadcast, feeling a sense of pride and connection to the fleet. Engineers on Mars and the Moon worked tirelessly to repair ships, improve weapons, and expand capabilities, knowing that every improvement directly affected the outcome of battles light years away. Even the youngest volunteers felt a part of the war effort, contributing wherever they could, building morale and unity across the planet. Meanwhile, other alien civilizations watched closely. Some remained neutral, unsure whether to support humans or the Empire. Others began sending secret aid, supplies, or intelligence to Earth, inspired by the bravery and tenacity of the species they had long dismissed. Fear of humanity spread faster than any fleet, shaking the confidence of allies and enemies alike. On distant worlds, commanders whispered warnings to one another. The humans learn faster than we can imagine. They adapt to everything. Do not underestimate them. Meanwhile, human leaders continued to coordinate flawlessly, using real-time data to anticipate the Empire's moves and prepare countermeasures. The war became a test of wit, courage, and innovation as much as strength, and humans excelled in every measure. Soldiers who had once doubted their abilities now executed complex strategies with precision, while AI systems optimized logistics, supply lines, and weaponry, allowing humans to strike far beyond what the Empire had thought possible. The first major victory came when humans destroyed a key supply hub, cutting off the Empire's reinforcements and forcing a retreat. This victory inspired further actions, emboldening pilots, scientists, and civilians alike. Every strike built on the last, turning small successes into a cascade of achievements that shocked the galaxy. The alien empire, struggling to maintain control, began to fracture internally. Commanders argued, strategies clashed, and morale dropped as humans repeatedly defied expectations. Even their oldest and most experienced leaders admitted in private, "We never imagined a species like this could rise so quickly." As human fleets moved deeper into enemy territory, they discovered new technologies, captured enemy ships, and learned secrets that gave them even greater advantages. Each victory was not just military, it was psychological, breaking the confidence and arrogance of a civilization that had once believed itself untouchable. On Earth, people celebrated cautiously, knowing that every victory was a step in a long war, but also realizing that their species had reached a turning point. The humans who had once been underestimated were now feared, respected, and admired across the galaxy. Even children who followed the battles learned the lessons of courage, unity, and adaptability. The Empire tried desperately to counterattack, but every move was anticipated and countered by the human fleet. AI units rerouted drones to intercept, humans executed ambushes, and captured enemy technology was quickly repurposed against them. The tide had turned, and the aliens realized they were fighting a war they could not easily win. Across the galaxy, oppressed species whispered of a new hope, seeing in humanity the possibility of freedom and balance. Allies once silent began to act, sending covert support, sharing intelligence, and quietly shifting the balance in favor of humans. Every battle that humans won strengthened their reputation, inspired more volunteers, and expanded their influence. The very name Earth became a symbol of defiance, courage, and unstoppable will. The Empire could no longer rely on numbers, experience, or arrogance. Humans had changed the rules, proving that intelligence, adaptability, and determination could outweigh centuries of dominance. The war was far from over, but humanity had claimed the advantage, turning what seemed impossible into a new reality. And as the human fleets continued to advance, striking with skill, bravery, and precision, one truth became clear to all who watched from afar. The galaxy would never again see Earth as weak, expendable, or insignificant. Humanity had risen, and the tide of war now flowed in their favor, unstoppable, unyielding, and united by the fire of survival, pride, and defiance that had begun with the burning of the Envoy. The war that had begun with the burning of the Envoy had finally reached a turning point, and humanity stood above the remnants of the alien empire, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. The fleets that had once been small and hidden now filled orbitals, moons, and distant battlefronts, a symbol of Earth's determination and ingenuity. Humans had adapted, learned, and fought with a precision and courage that no enemy could match. The alien empire, once proud and untouchable, had been forced to retreat, their fleets shattered, their systems compromised, and their confidence broken. Leaders of the empire sent emissaries to Earth, hoping for peace, yet their arrogance lingered. They expected negotiations, submission, or surrender, believing that humanity would remember the fear they had once felt. But humans remembered the flames, the Envoy, and the countless sacrifices that had brought them to this moment. Humanity did not kneel. Humanity did not forgive blindly. Instead, they offered terms that reflected strength, fairness, and a warning. No species would ever underestimate Earth again. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched the end of the Empire's dominance with awe and relief. Species that had once lived under fear or oppression now whispered of hope, inspired by the unity, resilience, and courage of humans. Diplomats from distant systems arrived, offering alliances, technology exchanges, and support, eager to learn from a species that had risen against impossible odds and survived. On Earth, celebrations were restrained but joyful, a mixture of pride, relief, and resolve. Every citizen understood that victory was not simply the defeat of an enemy, but the affirmation of humanity's place among the stars. Streets were filled with people cheering, children waving flags, and leaders addressing crowds, telling stories of bravery and ingenuity that would be remembered for generations. Scientists and engineers worked to rebuild systems, repurpose captured technology, and expand humanity's reach, not just for war, but for exploration, growth, and understanding. Soldiers returned from battlefields, heroes of courage and skill, welcomed by families and communities that had waited and hoped for their safe return. And yet, the memory of the Envoy, the fire in space, and the unity born from tragedy remained at the heart of humanity's spirit. It was a reminder that strength was not born of violence alone, but of will, determination, and the refusal to be broken. Across the galaxy, humans established embassies, research stations, and fleets dedicated to peace, defense, and progress. Allies once distant now worked closely with Earth, sharing knowledge and resources, while former enemies learned to respect the species that had risen from fire to command their own destiny. The alien empire, humbled and cautious, accepted the terms offered by humanity, recognizing that resistance would only lead to further losses. Their people would recover, rebuild, and remember, but the dominance they had once enjoyed was gone forever. The human fleet remained vigilant, a reminder to all that the galaxy was no longer theirs to intimidate without consequence. Every battle, every strategic victory, and every sacrifice had shaped this new era, proving that intelligence, unity, and courage could overcome even the oldest powers. Children now grew up with stories of the Envoy, the first strike, and the turning of the tide, learning lessons of courage, resilience, and the importance of standing together. Schools, libraries, and media celebrated human ingenuity, while families passed down memories of those who fought, planned, and inspired the species to rise. On distant worlds, humans established outposts for exploration, research, and defense, not conquest, but as a symbol that Earth had earned its place among the stars. Every decision was guided by the lessons of the past: to act with courage, think with intelligence, and never allow fear to dictate their future. Humanity had not only survived, but it had grown stronger, wiser, and more united. Across the galaxy, whispers of Earth's rise spread. The species that was burned has risen, and it will not be stopped. Alliances strengthened, trade routes opened, and the balance of power shifted as humans took their place, not as subjects, but as equals among the stars. The war had tested humanity in ways unimaginable, yet it had forged a species ready to face any challenge, prepared to defend its people, and determined to thrive. And as humans looked back at the countless stars that had once seemed distant and intimidating, they understood that they had done more than win a war, they had claimed their destiny. The planet itself seemed to breathe with pride, a home of resilience and courage, watching as its children reached for the stars. The story that began with the burning of the Envoy had become a legend, a reminder of what humanity could achieve when united, determined, and fearless. From the ashes of tragedy had risen a new era, one where Earth's people were no longer underestimated, no longer dismissed, and no longer afraid. Across every world they touched, humans carried a simple, powerful message. They would fight for survival, they would protect their own, and they would rise, no matter the cost. The galaxy would never forget the fury, courage, and spirit of a species that refused to bow, refused to be broken, and refused to surrender. Humanity had declared its place among the stars, and in doing so, had begun an era that would be remembered for millennia. The new era of Earth, where the children of a small blue planet proved that fire could forge not destruction, but the unstoppable rise of a species united, strong, and eternal.